Welcome to Discovering Africa Through Technology, the podcast series that showcases the brilliance of Africa's great minds, innovators, and experts as they tackle complex challenges with homegrown solutions driven by knowledge, technology, and innovation. Our podcast is inspired by the African Union Agenda 2063 Aspiration 7, which seeks to rebrand Africa and change negative narratives and perspectives through science, technology, and innovation. We believe that Africa has the power to solve its own development challenges and become a strong, united, resilient, peaceful, and influential global player and partner. Join us as we explore the transformative potential of technology in Africa with your host, Razia Kulatain Mwanga, and learn from the experts driving change on the African continent.
And today in the program, we shall be speaking to Sofia Ahmed Sadik, who is a country manager for Food and Land Use Coalition in Ethiopia. Sofia is an expert on food issues, and she will share her experience on what they have been doing to improve food security in Ethiopia. So Sofia, welcome to the program. Kindly share your thoughts, introduce yourself and what you've been doing. Welcome, Sofia.
Thank you so much, Razia, for the opportunity. And I'm excited to talk about our work in Ethiopia, and I'm happy to share our experience. As you said, my name is Sofia Ahmed. I'm the country manager for Food and Land Use Coalition in Ethiopia. For more than 10 years, I have been involved in shaping policies, programs that focuses on agriculture, food security, climate change, and land. I've also joined the Food and Land Use Coalition in Ethiopia since 2018. Globally, the Food and Land Use Coalition has been launched in 2017 in terms of seeking to accelerate the transition or the transformation of food and land use system to deliver on UN Sustainable Development Goal, global climate and biodiversity goal. Coming back to Ethiopia, Food and Land Use Coalition in Ethiopia also joined the global team in 2018 as a lead African country in terms of transforming our food and land use system. We have developed our action agenda which is called Action Agenda for a New Food and Land Use Economy in Ethiopia. That is aimed to deliver positive outcome for environment, health, inclusive development, and food security. For us, food and land use productivity, we determined whether almost all sub-Saharan African countries to feed this population, because development in Africa is mostly based on the extraction of land-based resources. Almost we can say 63% of the continent of our people is living in a rural area, which depends on agriculture for their livelihoods. The same with Ethiopia, almost the same population is the highest percent of our population is living on agriculture for their livelihood. That means any development targets, whether it is national or international, SDGs, Agenda 2023, AU Agenda for 2023, or that includes even nutrition agenda, all depends on deep transformation of accelerating land performance, as we all depend on land. So I will be talking to three approaches in terms of where this is critical in terms of making our food and land use land performance effective, so that countries can achieve their global target as well as national targets. One is enhancing access to agriculture and rural financing service for smallholder farmers. That includes innovative technologies. Innovative funding source can address key transitions needed for more sustainable and land use system, such as stimulating resilient agriculture that can control climate change, improving nutrition, closing gender gaps, reducing food loss and waste, even protecting and restoring our natural resources, which we are based on in every thing in our life. That all will help us also to deliver on AU agenda for 2023 SDG goals, AU Year of Nutrition. So for us is we make this a key area where it should be addressed in terms of addressing food security. That is access to finance for the smallholder farmers. As we all know, smallholder farmers in Africa has a very limited access to credits. If you take, for example, Ethiopia, 10% of the banking lending goes to the smallholder farmers. Even with that, it's focusing on agricultural commodities that focus on export. That means almost smallholder farmers, the majority of them are not accessing the linear or the conventional financing system. So we are trying to address this through more specialized agricultural financing, which we call it innovative financing mechanisms. It's now popular in most African countries. So governments need to focus on accessing more specialized financing that differ risk profile in longer term horizon in terms of communities' access to this kind of financing that would help them to improve productivity, better soil management, and better nutrition management, so that we approach food security through this kind of approach, looking at long term, trying to address the root causes of the problem. So this is one of the area where it's critically important that most African countries need to focus in terms of providing alternative financing or innovative financing mechanism that can address smallholder financial needs.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for that. When you talk about innovative financing and bridging how does that look like for a normal farmer? So somebody who is listening to this program, when you talk about this innovative finance, how does that look like? And also, can you also talk a little bit about bridging that gender gap, and how can this approach also protect and avoid loss and waste in agriculture?
Thank you again. Like for instance, we now I can take one example from Ethiopia what it looks like. I can take smallholder farmer coffee producers in Ethiopia. Almost 80% of our coffee are more than 70 years old, which is old coffee. So these smallholder coffee farmers, they don't have access to finance. They really want to renovate their coffee. They want to rehabilitate their coffee, but they don't have access to finance. So innovative financing mechanism that can help these smallholder farmers to cover the cost of this transition. Renovation or rehabilitation or stamping takes 1 to 3 years, sometimes 4 years. So those farmers need that kind of financing for them to be able to transit those 3 years to survive for the renovation time or stamping time. So this kind of innovation is really, they cannot get this in the conventional financial system. So this kind of innovation that can de-risk the long-term horizon that needed to support these communities or smallholder farmers, that it also motivates private sector to invest. So it will be government, philanthropy, and private sectors. So it's a blended kind of financing that will enable the smallholder farmers to help them to renovate their coffee so that they can be able to, resist, climate change. They can able to produce more in their life and support their livelihood, as well as contribute to the national food security, as well as GDP too, because the coffee is one of the critical cash crops in Ethiopia, in many other African countries as well. So the same thing in terms of closing gender gaps. If you look at even, when you cascade down access to finance from smallholder farmers, again, when you go back to gender issues, again, access to finance for women is one of the bottlenecks for them to be able to fight poverty, or in terms of accessing major agricultural inputs. So this kind of financial mechanism that is very inclusive, that can help smallholder farmers, especially women farmers, to access this innovative financing mechanism that would help them to do to produce access agricultural financial system. The same with in terms of reducing food loss, post-harvest loss. For instance, this kind of innovative financing would help in building this, like for example, warehouses, cold chains, so that smallholder farmers can get storage. The same thing with access to market. So all these facilities can be done through this innovative financing mechanism, because the conventional financing mechanism is not, properly supporting our smallholder farmers.
Wow, thank you very much, Sophia. Listening to you, this first approach is also very practical. It seems it's very practical across the continent, because the issues you've raised are the same issues that face each country. Because, like for example, Ethiopia, you've talked about coffee, but other countries, it depends on what crops that they need to renovate. And also, when you talk about post-harvest loss, these are just common problems that each country in Africa faces. So what is the second approach?
The other one is, as you know, if, like for instance, the same thing, if you really talk about finance again, the other approach is we invest more in terms of making our agricultural system that fit with the future, that can even contribute to preventing the current food crisis. That is an area where we think that we really need to focus on addressing the root causes of food crisis in the continent itself, because of the rationale that I mentioned earlier about the land performance. So it's imperative for most African countries to shift to sustainable and regenerative agricultural practices, because agriculture sits at the nexus of most pressing challenge of our time. If you talk of food security, nutrition, sustainable livelihood, water and soil quality, biodiversity, climate change, all this is very much related with agriculture. So overlooking this interlinkage will put our agriculture sector on a sustainable trajectory. That means food security, nutrition, all our targets which we are all depend on cannot be achieved. So for this, if you take example from Ethiopia, what we have done in Ethiopia is, in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, Ethiopian Agricultural Transformation Institute, and with other key government and international and national key stakeholders, we have recently developed an implementation plan that help the Ethiopian smallholder farmers to incorporate this model, which we call it sustainable regenerative agriculture commercialization model, because Ethiopia is moving from subsistence farming to commercial farming. In that shift from subsistence farming to commercial farming, we want to inject more sustainable and regenerative agricultural practices to our agricultural commercialization clusters, which is implemented in 365 waradas. So we aim to do this in 6 to 10, in 6 to 10 waradas over the next maybe 5 years. the buy-in of this approach by millions of our smallholder farmers, coupled with continued productivity, will further enhance Ethiopia's food and nutritional security, and it will also help us to control and to establish a farming system that is resilient to climate change, which is a climate change for us is going to reduce our GDP by 10%. You can imagine this in most African countries, because we all are, most of African countries are, we are smallholder farmers, we based in agriculture. So climate change is one of the critical challenge that is affecting our food security. So if we are able to establish an enabling environment for this one to happen, that would be a great asset in terms of controlling our climate change and also securing our food security. That is an area that I want to add.
Okay, thank you again. Talking about this sustainable regenerative agriculture, you've talked about the Ethiopian example, where you say you work with the government and also you work with small-scale holder farmers and also with other stakeholders. Looking at what you have done and your organization being a lead, what are other examples when you talk about the African continent? What are some examples that you think can also solve this problem?
In relation to food security,
Yes.
Yeah.
What are some other some good examples? Because this you've talked about, this is the Ethiopian examples. What are some other examples that are going on within the continent or the continent can adopt to make sure they are on the same line to promote this sustainable and regenerative agriculture?
I think for most African countries, as I repeatedly mentioned, that we making change happen in agriculture would help us to achieve multiple targets of SDGs, Agenda 2063, even AU Year of Nutrition, because everything is coming from agriculture. So agriculture is both a solution and a problem. So we need to deal with agriculture. So making our agriculture system more sustainable and regenerative means that we are giving to our land than we take, because now in most of African countries, we are extracting from our land. We don't give. We take more than we give. So we really need to give to our land, because we think that we focus more on short-term goal, like in terms of securing our food, producing more food. We are focusing more on productivity. So we are saying that it's increasing our food security and maintaining and our natural resource go hand in hand. Growth and environmental development are not or to each other; they rather depend on each other. So for us, for most African countries, I think it is critical for us to make sure that our agriculture system fits with the future, that gives more to the land so that we will benefit. That means we control climate change, we have good soil, we can produce more as we are expected to do. So these are, critically important for other African countries to adopt.
Wow, thank you very much. I like the concept of giving back to the land, that agriculture is a problem and also it is a solution. And I agree with you that we take more from the land than what we give back to the land. And I also love the idea that we should think long-term and not short-term. Talking about that, can you just talk a little bit about, for the past years, Ethiopia has been ravaged by famine, and also you had a program where there was a lot of food insecurity. So how has these examples and what you are doing, how has that helped to shape that? How secure is Ethiopia or in terms of food security?
Ethiopia is, as you know, we are in terms of, in terms of having good policies, strategies in place. We are similar to other countries, I think, in terms of, our ambition is very big. We are the lead country in Africa in terms of, producing even our food system pathway. We are the first country to commit ourselves to do that. We have good policies, strategies in place. We have, all from food security, national agriculture policy, even we have this Green Legacy initiative, which is trying to protect our natural resources. We are good in terms of having good policies and strategies in place. The problem with us is having this to come to on the ground. So when I talk about sustainable and regenerative agriculture, it's not an easy task. It seems it is. It seems very easy when you read it. We've been challenged a lot in terms of, promoting the sustainable and regenerative agriculture, even in Ethiopia, because policymakers need to get more information about the transition cost. They really want to know who is going to cover that one and how much it costs. So it's the same thing, or even in most African countries, making that land and land reform is critically important. Many factors need to happen for us to shift. So this is again a challenge for Ethiopia, but at the same time we are very good in terms of progressing, but we are not making to, we are still, conflict is there, we are unable to fight climate change. So many things are happening. So I think we are making some progresses, but we are in challenge. That's what I want to say.
Oh, thank you very much. So what is the last approach?
I think in terms of food security, I mentioned it a little bit, but I want to focus because this is a low-hanging fruit for most of us, most of African countries, because if we invest a little, which we can, harvest a lot, is investing in reducing our post-harvest loss. It is really important for most African governments to focus on this one because it's already in our table. It's already we produced, so we really need to focus on that one rather than focusing on more production and productivity. Let us take the whole sub-Saharan Africa. The post-harvest loss of sub-Saharan Africa can feed 48 million people each year, which is 20% of people which is affected by malnutrition. The same thing applies for Ethiopia. If we are able to reduce our post-harvest loss in the country, we can save a volume of crops that can even feed 23 million citizens per year, which we can save 1.2 billion USD dollar per year for Ethiopia. That means we as you know, the same thing in Ethiopia. You can think of at African level, we have 8 million chronically food insecure people, which is growing this year to over 22 million because of conflict, many other factors. So that means just by managing our post-harvest losses, we can save this amount of money, we can save this amount of food. That is, that can even be a substitute for food assistance that we are receiving from outside. So the same thing applies for most African countries. So it is critically important for us to repurpose our agricultural expenditure. I'm very sure most African countries are now progressing to, the commitment that they have done in Malebo in terms of, investing more in agriculture. So this is the low-hanging fruit for most of us. So this is the area which is really important for us to focus.
Okay, thank you. Just to finish off, as an expert, looking at all these areas that we've talked about, working where you work and you are the lead in the continent, what are the greatest challenges you've seen, and what solutions would you propose for other African countries to invest in to make sure we solve all these problems of food loss, food waste?
Yeah, I think it's not an easy task. It's really need an integrated approach. We need to stop working on silos. We need to focus on, when we talk about food system, whether it is post-harvest loss, whether it is sustainable, regenerative, it really needs an integrated approach. It really needs, we need to work together in a coordinated manner. Every stakeholder should play a role. Like if I just give you example of government has to play an indispensable role in terms of facilitating action from diverse stakeholders. On top of everything, I think action is critically important. We keep on talking for years and centuries. Why don't we start with a small thing in one area, and then we can start to talk about scalability at large scale. So its action is critically important for most of us. We are good, we adopt many national, international, continent level, regional level declarations, commitment, but action is critically important. And finance is critically important. Capacity building is critically important. So if you start with small, we can learn more, and we can start to scale it up.
Okay, what are some achievements and success stories that we can celebrate as the African continent?
As you said, we have many challenges, but at the same time, also we production and productivity are increasing in most of African countries in terms of, like for instance, I can even talk of Ethiopia. Because of our population growth, we are unable to cope up with, production in population growth. Otherwise, we have achieved a lot in terms of production and productivity. We have, a lot to celebrate in terms of, coordination among, at a higher level in terms of bringing all this actor together in making our voice heard at national, at international level, and also in terms of making I know that we have a lot to go in terms of gender equality, but we are progressing in terms of bringing gender agendas on board and making some changes happen in many countries. So there is some progress around that one, even if we have a lot to go.
Wow, thank you so much, Sofia Ahmed Sadik. That has been very insightful. And we have learned a lot today that as the African continent, for us to win this war against food insecurity, is that we have to repurpose agriculture investments, and then we have to promote sustainable regenerative agriculture, and also invest in agriculture for the future, and above all, work together. Thank you so much. This has been very insightful, and thank you for your contribution. And we look forward to seeing you next time as we bring in more experts. And we thank you for listening in. This program has been produced through the African Women in News Pitch Zone winners, and it has been funded by the African Union. And the contents of these programs are the producers and not the African Union's opinions. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye. This is your host, Razia. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
This podcast has been produced through African Women in News Pitch Zone winners and funded by the African Union, and the contents of this program are the sole responsibility of the producer and do not necessarily reflect the views of African women in media and the African Union.